If you
Exactly.
try all 500 and you only give it 1/500th of an effort on each of those, you're not gonna get any results, whether it's fitness or whether it's your kid.
Yeah.
Find the thing that you wanna
That
do
works
it
for
and
you.
stick with it and be
Yep.
consistent.
All right. I am so excited to bring to the show Virginia Kinkel. She is one of our local owners of Bodymass. She's in DC and Virginia and Tampa as well. And we kind of met each other in a weird, like Instagrammy sort of way. But Virginia just had a baby, and we're so excited to bring her on to kind of give her view on motherhood and pregnancy postpartum from not only like the mom perspective, but being in fitness and figuring out bikini and all that stuff. So thank you for coming. I'm so excited to chat with you and have you kind of share your story a little bit. Do you mind kind of just telling us quick 30 seconds, kind of your background and kind of how you came to
Yeah.
fitness and figure and bikini and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you first off for having me on here. It's been great. Like Carrie said, we met each other. I think it was initially like I'd heard about Carrie through a bunch of people local in the area. And then through one of the members at our gym went to go see Carrie. And so that kind of started the introduction. So she's been a great resource throughout this process because that was we met probably 6 months or a year before I was
Yeah.
even pregnant. So
Yep.
it's been nice to have you the whole duration of pregnancy and
I'm in your back
postpartum.
pocket.
Is very helpful. So yeah, a little bit about my background. So I got my degree from University of Maryland in kinesiology, studying human movement, the human body, and I got more into personal training and gym management, which eventually led me and my husband, who I met working together as a personal trainer, to open Bodymass. So our first location opened in Arlington, Virginia in 2016. And then our second location opened in when was it? August 2018 in Washington, D.C. So boutique strength training fitness studios. And then as a branch of that, we have what's called body mass composition testing, where we do DEXA for body composition analysis, as well as resting metabolic rate tests. So we have one of our body mass composition testing locations inside of our Arlington, Virginia gym. And then we also have a second composition testing location in Tampa, Florida, inside of MI40 gym.
And
So
that feeds a lot into the bikini and the figure competitions, right?
yes,
I'm learning
absolutely.
all that.
I know, you're getting really good at it. So I've competed for this. I'm celebrating my 10th anniversary. Last week was my like 10th
Congratulations.
anniversary of my first ever prep that I did. So anybody
Wow.
who's competed, it's kind of like a big deal when you officially start a prep. It's like you're making the commitment to go through the process of stepping on
Wow.
stage. So I've been doing it for 10 years. I've probably competed in 15 different shows. As Carrie said, first in figure, which is a little bit more of a more muscular, leaner division, which is not my natural build. And then I switched to bikini, which is a little bit more of like a longer, more streamlined look, which just fit my physique better. Obviously, I took a break last year when I had a baby.
There needs to be a pregnancy division.
So many people have said that, and oh, I didn't do this. I wanted to put on my suit. One of my friends did this when she was super pregnant right before she went into labor, and it just looked so good, and I did
Oh,
not do that. Now I'm, like, thinking
next
back, well,
time.
next baby,
Next
yeah.
time. Go back
Um,
just for that.
so I know exactly. Be like, "Why are you having a baby?" "Just so I can put on a sparkly bikini when I'm super
Totally.
pregnant, obviously. Is that normal?" And so
That's awesome.
now I just talked to my coach 2 days ago, and we've kind of set a game plan for this year for getting on stage. So I'm really excited. I'm like 12 and a half weeks postpartum right now.
Mhm.
Things have been going really well. So I'm kind of
Good.
excited to have a game plan to get on stage. And, my goal is a little different this time. In the past, it was
Yeah.
always to win and do the best. And now it's just
Right.
more to go through the process and do it and
Just
step on
experience it.
stage after
Yeah.
having a baby
And
and feeling good about
and in
myself.
true mom fashion, your daughter's in your lap right now.
Yes, she's
Just
right
and
here.
she and she's
She's
so sweet.
crimson. She's sleeping right here. So yes, this is how
Love it.
multitasking goes these days.
Exactly, exactly. All right. So, knowing your background, fitness, kind of all of this stuff, like what were your expectations going into pregnancy? And then kind of once you got through that, like what was realistic and what did you really find was not at all?
So I think my background in competing really stems from my fascination in the human body and what the human body is capable of accomplishing in terms of building muscle, losing body fat, changing your shape, changing your structure to achieve a certain goal. In my case, it's always been like how you look on stage and going along with what the judges' feedback is for you. So
Right.
if certain areas need to be bigger, more muscular, leaner. So I've always had this fascination in what the human body is capable of in more of a physiological aspect
Yeah.
as it relates to body composition, not so much what the body is capable of with actually having a
Growing a
baby.
human, yeah.
So it's I almost went into pregnancy with this kind of science experiment mindset that I usually take going into all of my preps is like, what's going to happen with this and what's going to happen with this. And so when
Yeah.
I go into these experiments, I literally call them experiments with my body.
Yeah.
I don't, I try to see, okay, if X, then Y, right? So if this happens, then what is the end result? I don't try to assume an end result first. And I think I did that
Ah.
going into pregnancy is I used it as like this learning process, this evolution of physiological change versus so many people who I know, lots of friends, lots of clients who I've had think so much about the end result first that they don't
Mm.
necessarily like take the process of pregnancy in
Oh,
stride. Does
that's
that
really
make
interesting.
sense?
No, it totally does. It totally does.
So it's
I
more
make the
just like a
joke.
learning process.
Yes.
So I didn't have expectations,
Okay.
which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but, I've
I
I've
think it's
learned
a good thing because then we don't have to unpack anything.
exactly, and I'm sure you can kind of understand this
Yeah.
of being a small business owner, and especially during the pandemic, is like you learn to take each day as it is and do what you can in that day. If you have any kind of expectation of what's going to happen in the long run, you're inevitably going to be disappointed in some capacity. So
Right.
why set that? Why not just kind of take each day as it is, do what you're capable of,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next day?
Yeah. What did you feel like was there anything that wasn't realistic as far as, things that you thought might happen or things that people had told you or things
So
like that?
yeah, so I'll use our our story as an example. So basically, my goal was to work out my entire pregnancy as long as, number one, it was cleared by physicians and I was
Yeah.
feeling okay. My goal was to just get to the gym on my regular schedule, which is typically 5 days a week. And a lot of times I went to the gym and I just, especially first trimester, felt terrible. And so I
Right.
would just kind of like hang out on a foam roller and, pretend to do some thoracic extensions, but like maybe I was half taking a nap with my eyes open.
Right.
But it was to just like get in the routine and the process of going to the gym. But my ultimate goal was to just try to maintain my strength as much as possible, as much as
Yep.
I physically felt able to kind of mitigate the big upswing
The
in
big
trying to come
shift,
back
yeah.
postpartum.
Yep.
So I was doing the stuff that I was physically able to strength wise, and that's upper body stuff was pretty consistent.
You
Lower
were
body,
very
a
consistent. I
little
was
bit.
watching you on Instagram every day. I was like, "Dang, girl, you are
I
showing
was
up."
trying. I was trying real hard. But the biggest thing that I kind of set for my goal, because obviously I'm not going to have goals of being able to lift a certain amount of weight, right? Like
Right.
I'm not hitting any PRs. I'm not going to obviously have any body composition related goals when I'm
Right.
pregnant. So I kind of mentally set this goal of like, I want to be able to do one pull up by the time that I'm 40 weeks
Right.
pregnant.
Right.
So this was kind of like my challenge to myself because obviously as I gained weight, pull ups would get harder and harder. And so I think I was relatively early on. Maybe I was like 15 to 20 weeks, somewhere
That
in
sounds
that
about right.
range, like kind of starting second trimester. And and I posted a video of me doing them on Instagram. And you messaged me and you said, "Can you send me a video of you doing a pull-up but without your shirt on so I can see your stomach and what's happening as you do a pull-up?" And I was like, okay. So, pull up my shirt
Strange
and
DM request.
totally normal, right? Uh,
Right.
some people get weird DMs. This is mine.
I just send weird DMs.
Yeah, exactly, and then I respond by giving you exactly what it is.
Exactly, right? No questions asked.
So I did the pull up, and what you had said is like you noticed a decent amount of coning in my
Yep.
stomach and my abdomen. And the biggest thing that you had said, and it stuck with me all throughout pregnancy, was that we kind of have to set our ego aside when during pregnancy. And you had said, you're like, there are a lot of women who come to me postpartum who say, I wish I had known during pregnancy to
Yeah,
make XYZ change. But you've never had somebody come to you who's made XYZ change and then said later, well, I really wish I didn't make that change so that I could still be able to do a pull up.
exactly.
And it resonated so
Exactly.
much with me to, like, literally check my ego because that was doing a pull-up was an ego thing, like, there's no other
Right.
reason to need to be able to do a pull-up
Yeah,
when you're pregnant
exactly.
other than like, "Haha, look, I can do this."
Yeah.
Um, and so it was such a reality check for me, and
Yeah.
so what I thought would be realistic was, being able to very literally do a pull-up the entire time, and
Mhm.
I realized, like, okay, if that's gonna cause more issues and more, like, potential diastasis recti down the line, it's not worth it
Well, and
for me.
that's a conversation that I have a lot, and it was so nice that you were just kind of open to just trying something different too. And first time moms, I think it's always a challenge because you have these things like I want to run to the end or I want to do this till the end, and it's such a blip on the screen of
Yes.
time. It's so nothing, but again, like. And I'm a biased data set. Like I
Yeah,
will say
yeah,
that up
yeah.
front. I do not see the stuff that turns out really well, but I've never once had somebody been like, wow, I wish I hadn't made that change. And so
Right.
and you did a pull-up on, like, right before you went to the
Yeah,
hospital,
because
right?
I
So
was 38 and a half weeks pregnant. I think it was,
right.
like, the week before I went in labor, I was like, "I just gotta do this to prove it
So
to
you
myself."
could do it. There was just no
I
need
still
to
had to have
kind
my
of
ego.
yeah, no, no, no. So you're still strong and badass. Like, I think we're
Yeah.
clear about
Oh, thank
that.
you. I was like, "If I do just one, this isn't gonna be so
Right, and no,
problematic."
you were totally good. So switching to postpartum, like, what has that been like? And you're at 12 and a half weeks, so,
Mhm.
you're really just kind of you can see the light now, like, what's that been like? And kinda what advice, because everybody has advice, what served you and what hasn't served you at this point?
So, being a older mom, technically I had a geriatric pregnancy because I
I
was
can say
35
that
and
too.
my
I'm
husband
an
was
elderly mom as well.
right. But it's good because you get to see so many people go through the process.
Yeah,
And so, like, I'm able to kind of take bits and pieces that I find valuable from other clients who have kids, friends, people that I
yep,
know, and kind of take that information and apply it to me. One of the biggest things that I found is as moms, we always, put ourselves second. There's somebody else
yes,
that's like the new priority in your life. But it's finding what things are really important and valuable and putting those for you at the forefront. I'm really fortunate in that my husband, Chris, is extremely supportive of everything that I do, both for my personal life, for our business. We own the gyms together, and as well as like taking care of her. He absolutely adores spending time with her.
that's
So I
awesome.
feel really fortunate. But like my me time is going to the gym and kind of like having a routine. And it's I'm not somebody that goes to the gym and feels like I have to like kill myself and kick my butt every single time I'm
But
there.
to show up is
But yeah,
important.
just to be
Yeah,
there, it puts me in this like good headspace. It's like
yep.
even though I work in the fitness world, it's like stepping away from work, it's stepping away from this. And so for me, just getting in the routine of
Yes.
going to the gym relatively early on, even if my workouts sucked early on, I was so shocked how 6 weeks off from the gym, how much weaker I
You don't
became.
realize how much
No.
strength kind of disappears over 9 months.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was mind-blowing to me, but I think, it's something easy that you can dwell on is, like, the negative of feeling like you're weak and you're not the same and your body's not the same, or you could be like, "Okay, well, this is
just
my
keep
starting
showing
point
up.
for now.
Yep,
What can I do today? Great.
yep.
What can I do tomorrow?" And it's almost that same mindset that I had during pregnancy of, like, a science experiment. Now I'm starting here. The stimulus is that I'm adding working out back into it. Now how does
Right.
this start to change
So
myself?
it sounds like you've kind of and I talk about mindset a ton because I think it really does set us up and expectations and that sort of thing. Like it really does sound that you're looking at it with a sense of curiosity as opposed to a sense of comparison or I should be here
Yes.
or yeah, that is huge.
And I think that's something that is it's something that I kind of personally struggle with in that my body naturally is I'm like a very thin, like my nickname
Mhm.
was Skeletor growing up from my dad. So,
Oh, that's
so
horrible.
like figure was hard for me to put on muscle and size. Like it took eating so much and training so hard to try to put on muscle. So
Oh,
my body's naturally thinner. So like one thing that I struggle with in these experiments is like 2 weeks postpartum, I was back to my pre-baby weight, and I know that's not normal, and I'm not saying this as, like, a way of, like, "Oh, this is how you should be 2 weeks
yeah,
postpartum," but sometimes I feel a little self-conscious sharing my story because I know that's not what most people go through,
yeah,
but I like to show, like, this is what's happening with me, and this is how my body's responding
yep.
to it, and, so that's something that I've actually really struggled with is sharing
It's
my
like the
story.
other side of the pendulum, and I think for you to
Yeah,
have that awareness or almost that hyper awareness of, "I know that this is not typical," but at the same time, this is you, and if
right.
anybody doesn't know Skeletor, like, back in the day, that was He-Man, just Google it. Apparently, we're showing our age
That's
here.
me. I put a picture of me as a 12-year-old.
Exactly, totally. No, but I think that's a really, I think, relevant point because you see so many people on social being like, "Oh, I'm back to here, I'm back to this," and for you, you're like, and especially being in the business that you're in,
Yes.
I can see people looking at you and being like, "Well, it's because she does that," or
Right, right, or I feel like people are like, "Oh, well, you're a competitor, so you've been on a diet since you, like, had your ba" like,
you're like, "No, no, no."
not at all.
You're like,
It's just how my body responds, and
"Yeah,
that it's all a learning process,
yeah."
and I might be back to, a couple weeks postpartum to my pre-baby weight, but, like, to me, that's not what's important. What's important is my strength, and, like, that I'm
You're
still
like, "That is
it's
still
gonna
not
be
there." Yeah. No,
not remotely
and
close.
I'm so incredibly appreciative that you're sharing that because there's such a broad expanse of experiences, but there's things like little threads that bring it all together. I mean, we're all a little bit aware postpartum that things have changed and things are different.
Yes,
We're all aware that, gosh, we're weaker and this is not, we don't want to be here. And we can be smaller than we planned or bigger than we planned. And we still have that kind of process of unpacking that we have a different body and we want to
yes.
do something with it that's not what we are in that moment.
Yes, exactly, exactly, and I really do think like, I credit a lot of it to you, and then there was a chiropractor that I went to,
Yeah,
during
Dr. Schwab.
pregnancy as
Yep.
well. Yep, and so a lot of my process and, like, feeling at ease with my body is stuff that came more from the medical professionals, um, I there's a lot of noise with people talking and being able to explain things, and everybody wants to, impart their wisdom on you,
Yes.
and so I think one thing that I found very helpful is, like, find the people that you want to listen to and listen to those people, and don't be dismissive of others, but, you can kind of listen to them, agree with them, but don't necessarily take that to heart because there's a lot of information that gets
Yeah.
bombarded at you.
That's probably should be in the Parenting 101 book because that doesn't go away.
Yeah. So that's good to know that it'll just continue as she gets older.
No, you get a little bit better at kind of filtering the noise and that sort
Yes,
of
I
thing,
found,
but
like, with
yeah.
even just, like, sleep habit stuff is I kind
Oh,
of relate it to, like, exercise is you could do there's, like, 500 different ways to exercise, just like there's
mhm.
500 different ways to get your kid to sleep. If you
Exactly.
try all 500 and you only give it 1/500th of an effort on each of those, you're not gonna get any results, whether it's fitness or whether it's your kid.
Yeah,
Find the thing that you wanna
that
do,
works
do it
for
and
you.
stick with it and be
Yep,
consistent. And
yep.
that's what I found with advice postpartum is there's lots of other stuff out there, and I try not to be dismissive of it, but I find what is it that I want to listen to and stick with? And
Yeah,
a lot of that is advice that's come from you and other professionals, or even just, again, friends or clients, and seeing their experience and just kind of listening to them. I take in and I retain the information that I think is going to be relevant, and the rest
yeah.
will
No,
just.
it's like build your own, build your own plan here. That
Mhm.
actually feeds really well into our last question here. If you could go back and tell your pregnant or early postpartum self anything, what would that be? Assuming you would listen to it.
Yes, I think that that would be the biggest
Okay.
piece of it, is to find who or what it is that you wanna listen to. I mean, especially now with the internet, it is such a rabbit hole that you can go down
Yes.
on information, and on every topic that you're looking at, there's 2 totally opposite ends of the spectrum, and you're like, "Well, am I supposed to do A or Z?" Because both of those are getting you an end result, and they seem counterintuitive.
Yep.
So that would be one thing that I would tell myself earlier on to kind of find that path. It took me a little while to get there.
I
Um,
think you're finding it really quickly at 12 and a half weeks, not
Thank
for
you.
nothing,
I
but
appreciate that.
you're
Well,
doing like
thank
the
you.
speed course.
I'm trying. I really do take like things that I've learned as a business owner and as a figure competitor. And even though it's a different world with a baby, I apply a lot of those,
Yeah.
not to be redundant, but what I said earlier of just like take it one day at a time and like do what you can that day. You know, my early pregnant self, it was like today eating this type of food, it tastes great and this is what you want. And the next day it makes you nauseous. This day I'm tired and I
Yeah.
don't really want to go to the gym, but the next day I might feel good. Whatever's happening in the moment isn't the be all end all. It's always evolving. So I think that is to like understand the evolution. The other thing that I would tell myself is a lot of, again, that information that I'm kind of like taking in pregnant is um, the baby's gonna get here and it's gonna be completely different. And it it's not even matter because
I
you might
think I said that to you. I was like, "We can have a
yes,
conversation
you
6 weeks postpartum that we can't have right
it
now."
is totally different. And there's just so many things that you like read about or hear about and learn. Like this one I like to use as an example is like, so I'm breastfeeding, and when I was at the hospital, the nurse and the lactation consultant came in and they're like, and this is my first kid. I've never breastfed obviously before in my
Yeah,
life. And they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you look like you got it." I'm like, "Yeah, I got it." Like I'm doing
totally.
all right. And
Yeah.
so I like leave the hospital. I'm like, this is so good. And everybody is like, says that your milk comes in like, oh, that's so cute. Like your milk's gonna come in. And I'm like,
No,
oh great,
girl.
my milk's gonna come in. The next day I was at home and yes, I
Niagara
first of all,
Falls.
that night I could not roll over when I was sleeping
No.
because my boobs were like bowling balls. And my sister had to come over and
I'm
literally
having, like,
milk me
reflexive, like,
yes, it's like, I don't ever
PTSD
wanna
now.
experience that again. My like, literally, my sister came over and milked me. Like, she came over to
Oh, you have
milk
the
the
best
baby,
sister.
and she came over and milked me like a cow. I'm sitting there, and I was, like, crying, and this is happening to me, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And I thought this was, like, the future of forever. Like, this is how breastfeeding goes,
Oh,
and it was petrifying because I was like, I wanted to breastfeed, but I wasn't opposed to, like, bottle feeding formula. Like, I
right.
was just keeping an open mind with
But if
it.
this is what it was, you weren't
But
interested?
I was petrified. And fortunately, it balanced out. But I think that's something I would tell myself too is a lot of experiences I think are kind of sugar coated. Like again, like this whole like, oh, your milk comes in. People don't really explain what that means, what it'll feel like, and that
Yeah,
it doesn't always stay like that. Like I wish I had known
yeah,
beforehand, like your milk coming in means your boobs are going to be huge. They're going to weigh a million pounds. They're going to hurt. Your baby's not going to latch. She's going to be biting. Your nipples are
yeah.
going to hurt. They're going to
Nipples
start
will be
to bleed.
hamburger. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's funny when I'll kind of test the room when I'm talking to a pregnant mom. Like, okay, well, how is she taking this? I'm like, okay, so there's going to be liquids coming out of every orifice in your body
Yeah.
simultaneously. And
Yeah.
then usually you'll see the look of horror. And the thing is, you can't go back. Like, you're already pregnant.
Right. So
There's,
and so that's I described so people have asked like, "Oh, how was labor?" Especially after I had her. I was like, "Have you ever, like, been on a roller coaster and you're, like, strapped in and you're going up and, like, halfway up, you're like, 'I don't wanna do this. Why did I do this? Why am I on this roller coaster?' But you're strapped in and there's nowhere to
and you
go but
can't.
all the way back."
That's a lovely way of
That's what
putting it.
labor is like. It's like you're starting and you're like, "I don't want this anymore. I don't want this. Why am I doing this?" And there's nowhere to go but
That's
give
parenting
birth.
too. That is
Yeah.
parenting. So,
This is good. Lessons I've
you can
learned in
write the book now. You just
yeah,
remember.
I'm an expert at 12 and a half weeks.
Exactly. So go back and remind yourself of this stuff because it
Yes,
doesn't go
yes,
away. Your boobs
exactly.
will get better.
But
Your boobs will get a
they
lot
are
better.
much better now,
Good. I'm
and
glad
I
to hear
ended up
that.
going to see a lactation consultant, but, like,
Yes.
I just wish I'm a very direct person, and I wish, like, especially in the hospital setting, like, people were more direct. They kind of, like, give you the very surface level of stuff,
Yeah.
but there's just so much more that goes into it.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "Did you watch the breastfeeding video?" And you're like, "Yes, I understand why the nutrients of breast milk are important." That has, like, nothing to do with it, you know? Yeah, I
No.
mean, like, yes, it does, but there's
Yeah.
so much more.
And I think, and again, maybe this is what you'd agree with as well, is like having that team of people literally that when you get on the other side, like you had your clients and your friends that you could DM. You had me and you're like, "Hey, what
I
is this
do.
feeling that's going on?" And I'm like, "All right, get in here
Yep,
next week." Okay.
yep,
So having that
exactly.
team on speed dial, I think just people that you trust to kind of walk you back from the cliff and help you
Yes.
understand what's going on and make sense of it, because again, you can logically understand it all, but once you get in it, you're like, "What in God's name just
It's so
happened?"
different. It's so different. Right. It's like you can read a manual about how to drive a car all
Yeah.
day long. You have
Yeah.
no clue till you're behind the wheel.
No, absolutely not. Well, thank you so much. I think we're gonna end on stiff boobs and
Yeah,
but
super fun.
I wanted to talk to you while you were still those memories were still fresh, because I
Yes.
think they dilute over the years, but still, yeah, the PTSD reflexive stuff.
You're starting to sit there like, "Mhm, I remember that, I remember that,"
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
honestly, like, having resources, especially a
Yeah.
resource like you throughout it all has been
Oh, thanks.
a game changer, and especially, like I said, I wanna compete again, like, my goal is to compete again, so I really want to be as prepared as I can, my body
Yeah.
physically and physiologically as much as possible, and you've been like a wonderful
Oh,
resource.
thank you.
So
And
thank
again, I always say to my clients, I was like, look, as long as you keep paying it forward and paying it
you.
forward to your communities, because
Yeah.
that's how we're going to make this revolution, this change, is if we're all more open about it. And you've just been incredibly open with your communities about it. And I appreciate that, because it's hard to be that vulnerable as you're learning things. So awesome.
Yes, it is. Yes,
If
it
you
is.
want to
Well, thank
find
you.
Virginia, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying thank you so much for that. I
Oh,
really
absolutely, absolutely. If you wanna find Virginia, you can find her over on, Instagram at Virginia V. Kinkel and at Bodymass. And again, if you're looking for training and you want a coach who's familiar with postpartum, we've got Virginia here in the DC area. Thank you so much, and your daughter was exceptionally,
you're so
um
she snoozed throughout it all. Where is she?
she's
There she
famous now, so
She
awesome.
is.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. See ya.
Thank you, Carrie. Take care. Bye-bye.